Hey everyone, it's Richard James here from Nationwide Building Society, back again. Thank you, Barry, for having me this year to give an update on progress, learnings, and again, just share our journey so far. Up front, you can see the slide I'm showing this time is the same headline slides that I used actually 2 years ago. This was something where I talked actually quite openly in late 2018 through 2019 on the topic of technology is easy, culture is hard. And I think actually on reflection, what I could say now 2 years later is that it's probably true to say that technology is quite hard, but it's even truer to say that culture is rock hard. Absolutely, culture is the elephant in the room. Culture is what sits at the heart of this ongoing evolution, this journey. And even there, actually on this headline slide, I've changed particularly my language from this sort of sense of tackling a digital transformation into actually something that is much more of a reflection of ongoing evolution, ongoing kind of cultural journey we're on at Nationwide. So without further ado, today, 11 reflections on tackling the cultural elephant, and let us begin with lesson one. Lesson one for me, back to that front slide, my mindset on this, and in fact, the journey we are on organizationally within Nationwide is a reflection that we're no longer running a discrete transformational project. This is not something that has a beginning, a middle, an end. It's not something crucially that can be determined with a project plan. It's not something that can be almost forced to obey rules of timelines and drop dead dates and milestones. And in fact, actually is much more emergent, much more reflective of the world around us, and much more actually respectful and sustainable on the basis of understanding that each individual, each colleague, each senior leader is on their own journey. They're on their own path here. A quick heads up on Nationwide's own position. So Nationwide has moved from running a sort of distinct, separate programmatic digital transformation into establishing an enablement center for ways of working, which I'm absolutely privileged to be able to lead. And that center for ways of working is there as an enduring capability to support, to act as scaffolding for the organization, and to coach, guide, and participate with colleagues on what becomes an ongoing evolution. I can say that really openly here amongst friends. And yet actually internally sharing this, you're back into the organization, that sense that we're on a journey and that we should be enjoying the journey rather than aggressively seeking a goal and a target and an end isn't common, isn't comfortable. It's not something actually organizationally where we're ready yet at a sort of a societal level to embrace the concept of emergence, to embrace the journey more than the destination. All of that wiring that reflects many years now of clear, complicated zone planning, analysis, and execution to defined, agreed upfront contracts. All of that complicated zone work is struggling now as we move into that sort of more complex adaptive space, and the sort of transitioning connecting from complicated to complex absolutely sits at the heart of then the cultural journey we are on, the cultural journey many organizations, many larger, older, established organizations are on right now. So lesson one, reflection number one, is that we should be enjoying the journey, not aggressively chasing a particular destination, and that this is absolutely about colleagues and leaders discovering their own evolutionary journey over a given time frame. Lesson two then becomes a reflection that this is a journey for leaders. It's a journey for leaders at all levels, but crucially and respectfully, this is one where senior leaders don't get to opt out or don't get to command others. This is one where senior leaders necessarily have to step in, have to participate, and have to role model. I think what's probably true to say is that over the last period, we have probably appreciated increasingly the need for change, that sort of why change. And I think that's absolutely something that isn't in doubt anymore, that case for change. Obviously, this year accelerated yet further by both the pace of change in the environment around us, but crucially then also the impact of COVID and the rapid sort of shift towards digital. But I don't think we're now wrestling with a question as to whether the organization needs change. The challenge at this point is much more around who is changing, particularly about whether senior leaders themselves understand not just the case, but the need for change close to home with senior leaders. And that, I think, is still, again, respectfully of my own organization, something we're wrestling with, this idea that agility and a need for experimentation, continuous improvement are not something that is commanded of others, but rather is something that is led from the front by senior leaders acting their way to a new way of thinking. The third reflection then is, crucially, it's not possible just to command change. It's not viable to state it of others. It's not possible to plan it on a Gantt chart. This is something that is crucially kind of experienced. It is learning by doing, and this is something where the natural tendency in populations towards what Simon Sinek would refer to as the kind of diffusion of innovation curve, these early adopters, or what Simon Wardley referred to as pioneers, setters, and town planners. This is the one where actually, for me, I am seeking out the early adopters. My team are seeking out the early adopters. We're seeking those partners that we can work with within our organization who are prepared at the team level, but also crucially supported at the leadership level. Leaders who are prepared to be vulnerable, who are prepared to stick their neck out and try things that actually challenge, sometimes their very identity, sometimes the thing that they are, recognized and have been celebrated and promoted for is now up for debate. And that sense of vulnerability and an appreciation from senior leaders of the need to themselves step in, be vulnerable, share, and move away from a kind of parent-child or command and control relationship with teams, and actually say, look, we're in this together. This is a journey we're all on. And I, as a senior leader, am just as much here with you, learning by doing, as you are yourselves. I think that then those early adopters are the ones that become the champions. They become really the kind of the fulcrum by which we can make progress. The fourth reflection then, once you've found the early adopters, is just to check in on what I would class increasingly, what I tend to sense as sort of these balances, this sort of sense of courage and curiosity, almost on a graphic equalizer. I have a sort of mental picture right now where after sort of years and years, decades actually of almost sellotaping or sticky taping courage and curiosity dials down to zero. This whole agenda is something that is about just kind of amping up, pushing up the graphic equalizer dials in courage and curiosity. And the challenge for the senior leaders themselves and the teams, as well as then from a team who are helping the organization on the journey, is to, again, respectfully, cautiously, sensitively look at those courage and curiosity dials and help find ways to promote them up enough that there is safety to experiment, there is safety to try something new, and that there is safety to fail in a managed, secure, non-judgmental way, so as to accelerate learnings in the organization. And what I find almost more fascinating is not just the need to get the courage and curiosity quotient up high enough to start. I find the thing that's almost more impactful is the extent to which actually negative experiences then dramatically impact courage and curiosity. Let's say an experiment doesn't provide the results that were expected. I would hazard a guess that for many people, that would dial right back down the courage and the curiosity. And again, in this environment where things are emergent, and it's true to say that experimentation will result in just as many successful results as per leading and lagging indicators as sometimes they will, not proving out the hypotheses. And I think that space where actually, do you know what, your courage and your curiosity aren't just undiminished. If anything, for the bravest amongst us, the courage and curiosity goes up. Why is it that experiment didn't give the result that was expected? Why is it? What is it we can do to go again? And I think these things, the sense of graphic equalizer and the sense of really wanted to focus on providing an environment and nurturing an environment and sustaining an environment of safety in which courage and curiosity are respected and treated with sensitivity is fundamental. The fifth lesson then, once you have the courage and curiosity in the right place, reflection from my perspective again is the impact of learning. It's almost a rediscovery of a joy of learning, the space for learning, and the sharing of learning as well. The sense that it's both deeply personal, but actually there's something fantastic about being able to share learnings with others. Looking out across this year, I feel actually hugely privileged to have been able to spend time with my daughters, two girls under 10, who during the predominant period of lockdown, I was engaged in their schoolwork. And that actually almost as a trigger for my own re-engagement in learning. I genuinely enjoyed under 10 maths, and I genuinely enjoyed relearning French. And I certainly wasn't awesome at a number of the subjects, particularly art is still something I struggle with. But being involved in learning with my daughters has really piqued my own interest. And actually, what we have found as a family is that some of those things that then I read, we've engaged with back at home. And so, just as one example, leadership as language, David Marquette, follow up from Turn the Ship Around. Leadership as language has this kind of core tenet of red work for proving, blue work for improving. And the girls and I now practice that inside our own violin lessons at home, because both learning violin and when we go into sort of sessions where we sit and sort of work through, how do we want to practice today? We practice, which is the red work space, the prove work. And then we reflect at the end of any given piece or any given set of scales, and we think about what were the goods and what were the even better ifs. And that sense that learning and practice, both in the home and increasingly this sort of slightly strange non-divide between home and work, finds itself in the workplace. We have really enjoyed this year the growth in what we would call book club. And book club for us, a set of kind of like-minded but quite diverse population from across the organisation, started in technology, but increasingly now into the data communities, into the HR people and culture communities. We've got a really good set of colleagues who come together who want to share particular books that they're reading, who want to share reflections and translation into our context. And that book club has so far tackled anything from seminary artifacts such as the Unicorn Project and things like Project to Product, and more recently Measure What Matters, and the Art of Business Value from Mark Schwartz. And the thing I'm finding, again, as a really personal reflection, is I'm enjoying the fact that maybe in the first couple of books we reviewed, it was quite passive in terms of one or two of us sharing learnings, and then maybe a handful of folks starting to contribute. Where we get to now is sort of 50 to 60 people contributing really comfortably every month, and actually, importantly, taking it back and experimenting in their context, taking back those learnings and actively seeking to develop a sort of learning network where they're prepared to practice the things that we're starting to share from the books we're reading. And even the diversity of books that are being referenced in book club show an increasing awareness and sort of comfort with new topics for us. Once you start, I think it's then a sort of respect for the fact that actually continuous improvement mindset, again, sort of culturally really looking to focus on the idea that there isn't a single answer, there isn't an emergent sort of set of practices that are written down in a book and you can just download the instruction manual and everyone's on their way. I have personally enjoyed the links to Shu Ha Ri, or Imitate, Assimilate and Innovate, this sort of idea that actually in the population, in our organization, we definitely have those who are who have been historically pioneers and who've really enjoyed sort of leading and treading the path themselves, and now sort of 2, 3, maybe even 4 years into their own journeys, they're very much now into the Assimilate and potentially even Innovate. That they are at the edges of established guardrails that really start to challenge the organization's sort of appetite and how to balance speed and safety. And that's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant to see those pioneers. But the thing that is even more important and sort of heartwarming to see is that the fact that these pioneers are now connected all the way through the organization, working alongside colleagues who are earlier on their own respective paths and teams and leaders who are just starting out, all the way back to your division of innovation, all the way back to your kind of late majority, who are now maybe starting to get that first inkling that there is change afoot and that it's not something that can be avoided. And the connection within our organization, within society, for those who are at the sort of shoe heart end of the continuous improvement kata, the sort of improvement kata, that the fact that the organization now feels comfortable to share those learnings, both safety for a colleague like Geraldine last year who stood up and reflected. Actually, she felt quite remote. She felt like an islander who wasn't welcome on the mainland. I would say that in the year that has passed since last SEACON, we've probably found more respect, more appreciation for that kind of diversity of thought, more inclusivity, and it's driving now a continuous improvement mindset where there isn't a best answer. There is maybe a pattern, something that can be shared, and we're starting to absolutely emerge those sort of anti-patterns and patterns that John Smart would reference. And importantly, the fact that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, that this is something that emerges and then over time is something that those teams imitate, copy, reflect patterns, and then start to set their own patterns based on the anti-patterns they observe in their own teams and environments. Even there, catching myself on language, cannot overstate the damaging impact of jargon. And this is me calling out myself. I'm absolutely in love with this space. I'm in love with the sort of lean agile and the DevOps. I'm in love with the reflections and how it sort of ties back to things like Toyota. And I think when you're Jacques Barron calls it, when you're inside the bubble of the bubble, so you're absolutely in the heart of it, you kind of can't help but use this language because it's so exciting and it fits so well the challenges as you perceive them. But the risk of alienating others, not just confusing, but kind of actively alienating. The challenge about this being jargon and this being very much for technology or change professionals, and not being for the wider organizational society, is really in the end impacting our ability to affect the changes, the move towards more business agility, if it's seen to be something that is only for a subset of the population. And so that sort of jargon-free language, catching yourself on lost in translation, avoiding too much Japanese nomenclature, whilst also holding true to the principles, not losing sight of the intent or the meaning, but just making it safe for colleagues to feel that it's not alien, it's not something that is exclusive, it's not something that isn't accessible. This has to be, in language and intent, something that is both open, welcoming, and supportive of colleagues at all levels of capability. Once you have even a modicum of interest, you sort of reflect back and you think about learning and you think about sharing and you think about trying not to turn people off with jargon. The challenge is actually once you've had your interest piqued, once you've started that, I understand what the books are saying, and I'm genuinely now passionate and interested in what it is that I'm hearing about here. The challenge is in the practical execution. It's this sort of experiential learning. It's this learn by doing element of it, and a genuinely kind of fundamental eye-opening moment for me was this concept of experimentation, which was new for me as an individual and new for the organization. The idea that we move away from deterministic plans to more hypothesis-led experimentation and celebrate the conducting of experiments, celebrate both the successes and failures of experiments, is still culturally something that is new organizationally. And if I'm at the sort of the furthest reaches of pioneering and I'm saying, well, it was new to me, you can picture for 15, 16, 17,000 colleagues, experimentation isn't daily language. And yet what we've observed even through the course of this last sort of 6 to 9 months is absolutely an embracing of experimentation across a number of teams, and a real, again, a kind of a respect and an appreciation for the fact that experimentation allows colleagues who are everything from absolutely up for it all the way through to deeply skeptical to participate, because it's safe. A safe to fail experiment allows the skeptics to be really open about what they're skeptical about, and allows the evangelists and the pioneers to be really open about what they're excited about, and provides that sort of time-bound or other measurement-bound space in which we can reflect learnings in a way that's not challenging, but is actually supportive of further experimentation. It becomes a virtuous circle. And that, experimentation agenda must be measurement-based, must start with a hypothesis. I really love the work around ensuring that there are leading indicators that are there to allow you to see the progress in the real time, and then those lagging indicators linked to business value, and the fact that actually experimentation deriving incremental business value almost as a ticket to the game for colleagues who are not yet comfortable. Your sort of incremental experimentation-based value is a ticket to the game and a seat at the table. So I think embracing experimentation, the culture of being comfortable with the uncertainty, the culture of comfort in the unknown, and an ability to experiment, to test and learn and adapt, sense, test, respond, whichever way around you want to see it. This is a fundamental. Reflection number 9 is then, once you get really into it and you start experimenting, the challenging of the status quo. Large organizations, established organizations over 100 years old, organizations that are heavily regulated, organizations that have mass bureaucracies, governments built over time for good reason, but unchecked, become real impediments to flow. Getting to a space where it's possible to challenge with respect, to challenge with honesty and integrity, and to challenge in a way that is also kind of recognized, accepted, and appreciated by those being challenged, is a huge, huge change. We are nowhere near yet the kind of and-on cord culture, that workplace safety culture where teams may well now be able to, in their own context, experiment where improvements are in their gift or in their control. And you see emergent experimentation where teams would say they can influence. What we don't yet have, and what is a challenge, is the opportunity to escalate early, where those words aren't seen to be negative, aren't seen to be challenging, are seen to be actually supported, recognized, and championed by senior leaders. John Smart recently, again referencing others' work on the idea of moving from reporting lines to supporting lines, and senior leaders being there to support colleagues, support with escalations where impediments are the path. Your ability to challenge the status quo and your ability to challenge safely is something that is fundamental to making progress in this space, and is a learning that we are still working our way through at the moment. Reflection 10 then is, as we work through these things, it's the sharing of stories, it's the writing of stories, it's the creation of patterns, and crucially, it's the respect for the fact that it's not your story. Here, this is not a ways of working story. This is colleagues' own journey. This is absolutely about individual senior leaders. It's about teams, and it's about reflecting their own qualitative and quantitative measurable progress. And it's being prepared to help colleagues write their stories, share their stories, is something that an enablement team is there to do. But reflecting that these are team stories, and they are all the more powerful and all the more impactful when told from the context of the person who is affecting or moving their own journey, is crucial, again, to the kind of sustainability and growth of this. The sort of move from early adopter to early majority to late majority, exposing the laggards, is all about an absolute kind of self-led sustainable engagement in this agenda, and therefore cannot be done to, cannot be inflicted on, must be invited, and therefore the invite must come with stories from those who are already at the party and engaging. And I think that whose story is it anyway, and making sure that when you're telling a bedtime story, it's not Tom, it's the story itself that is the star, is really important. And then for me, absolutely, kind of the last reflection remains that it's the opportunity to share, it's the opportunity to work with, to learn from, to connect to, and just, if nothing else, actually keep your personal energy and your resilience up through engagement with conferences, through engagements with meetups, through use of social channels. I cannot overstate how important it is to me, the friends I've met on this journey, and friends who are both within our organization and crucially outside, the impact that you all have on this community, the sense that it is there as a support arrangement, and it's there to let off steam, and it's there to promote new thinking and to share those emergent patterns. I cannot underplay the impact that having these groups and having opportunities to share with like-minded colleagues in other contexts helps any individual, any organization, actually the movement more broadly across society. With that, I think what I would say is then a massive thank you as ever for listening, for participating, for supporting, for helping, for sharing. And I really, really hope that everyone watching this continues, take some of these reflections, add their own reflections, and until next time, until we meet again, genuinely, again, a massive thank you from me for everything. Thank you.